All right, I'm back. Here's a weekly recap. Really, really hard week. Um, Took 3 losses in a row this week after taking a really good short. Last week I was really patient. I only took one trade and it was a winner, and I was really happy with my performance last week. I think this week was just really good in terms of learning lessons. So I'll go into literally just every single trade. Took one Monday, and then I took one Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I took 4 trades, which is a bit more than what I'd usually expect to take per week with this model that I'm now learning. So that's definitely a sign that I might have been possibly forcing some lower quality setups this week. But yeah, we'll go into it in terms of everything. So on Monday, what happened on Monday? Okay, I remember. So on Monday we just ran up the entire day, and I was actually looking for some type of short. Reason for it is I thought going into the week that we would definitely go to the weekly BISI right here. And that was going to be my weekly draw, and that's how I was going to shape my buys for the week. So I really wanted to see that hit, as well as on the daily. We had these really nice equal lows that technically did get swept, but it was only swept by about a tick. And you guys know what ICT said about this. He says it's not a deep enough of a sweep to really stop everyone out. So if you see some type of sweep like this, typically price will return to this at some point if it aligns with the narrative. So that was my bias going into the week. I was really leaning bearish, and I wanted to see us hold all of these SIBIs on the 4-hour, and I thought it was permissible for price to come back and tap into this change as well. But we could also reject from here and continue lower. So on Monday, that's basically what I was looking for. I was looking for, something to hold in terms of a SIBI and to just get a bearish reaction of it and take a short. So what ended up happening on Monday is at 9:30, we immediately just pump higher without really having any type of manipulation. And we left all the sell side down here. And obviously I was bearish on the week. I'm not going in depth as much as I am on like the previous days of the week, just because replay mode is super annoying. I'm just going to give like a high level overview. And I've already journaled all of this, so I know exactly what I need to improve on. So this was at 10:15. We were inside of this hourly SIBI. We had an SMT at the highs right here. And I entered off this change in state of delivery down here and the inverse right here on a retrace back to the change. And I was originally just looking for this low and this low. Obviously price hit that low. One thing though is I almost got stopped out, so I actually ended up trailing my stop to this high right here after we inversed this BISI. However, I think it was a bit too premature because of how terrible this price action was. So I almost got stopped there by like literally a tick. I put my stop loss like literally a tick above this swing high. So I got really lucky there. It ended up going up TP1, and I scaled about a quarter of the position when I meant to scale about a half of it. And then I got stopped at break even, which is fine. Just accidental poor mismanagement of the profit taking there, but that's fine. In hindsight, though, and after reflecting on this week, I shouldn't have taken this trade. Reason why? We already expanded 170 points since the open. This was the move. The draw for the morning session was this high right here on NQ. And we had taken that already and continued to displace higher. And I started getting later in the session. So I already knew this, right? But it's like you can only really change after getting your hand too close to the stove. Like what I mean by that is like you can tell like a little kid that he can't do something, as in you can't touch a hot stove because your hand's gonna burn, but they won't listen to you until they touch it and their hand gets burned. Sometimes multiple times, right? That's just human nature. I always knew that probability of trades working out after big expansion or us you know hitting the morning draw is lower probability, but I justify it to myself by saying, "Oh, I'm just going for a scalp," right? Or it's, "Oh, we've pumped so much, I definitely think we could rebalance to 50%." And I think the main lesson with that is just because something can happen doesn't mean you should participate in it when it comes to trading, right? Because I just like I just do not want to hold through something like this just for like a measly, well, not a measly, but just for this low, where I could maybe wait for another day where we could get some type of Judas swing lower, and I could take the setup here and go for way more points, and it'll be a smoother price run. I don't have to incur as much drawdown, and my mental capital doesn't take as much of a hit, right? So the main lesson from Monday was like, probably should just avoid taking trades like this. Again, like I was saying earlier, sometimes it takes multiple times of being your hand getting too close to the stove for you to actually learn the lesson. So I ended up taking a similar trade like this today, which was a loss, which I'm not happy about taking the trade in hindsight, but at the same time, I'm glad I did because it really kind of cemented into me that we should really not be trading after this morning objective has been taken. So, and I think another reason why that this didn't really cement into me in terms of like me internalizing the lesson is because this was not a loss. It was like a very small win. So it almost reinforced to me that I should be taking trades like this. But after reflecting on today's loss, I'm talking as in Friday. I'm reviewing Monday's trade right now. These trades are lower probability, and just from my experience trading futures over these last few months, every time I've taken a trade after the morning objective has been hit, regardless if it's a win or not, it's typically like a really small win because it only goes to TP1 and it's a break-even trade, or you get stuck in chop and it's a break-even trade, or it's just a loss. So yeah. Next trade was Wednesday. Now I kind of forgot what it was. Oh, it was a loss. So it was a loss, but I remember what it was. So again, I had the same bias in terms of the weekly. We had that weekly BISI below us, and to me, this looked like this wasn't as clear to me, but I was basing it purely off liquidity, right? I understood that this was holding right, but it didn't really matter to me because I thought the draw was lower on the higher time frame. Because if we look on the daily, there's just, to me, this is not really a clear buy side target. I thought this was very obvious in terms of an unfilled weekly BISI and these relative equal lows. And what I wanted to see was this hold right here, this order block to hold right here, this small one, and for us to just drop lower going into Wednesday. Right, so same weekly bias, same narrative from previous sessions or the previous trade recap. So here is open. At open, we get that Judas swing higher. We SMT, I believe it was this high. It was either this high or this high. I forgot. It doesn't really matter though. Let me remember. It was this high. It was this high. It was this high, and we were holding this 15-minute SIBI, as well as this 30-minute SIBI, and then this 30-minute change right here. So I wanted to see this hold, and I wanted to see this drop lower. Now, this should have been a break-even trade. I entered off this inversion here. The change in state was up here. My model was just SMT, change of state delivery and inverse. I entered off the candle close. Stop was at the high. This should have been a break-even trade because the second I entered the trade at 940, ES was all the way down here, and it had taken out my first objective. At this point, I did see it, but I was like, I have a lot of conviction in us going lower. I'm not going to go to break even. Now, the reason why this was not a smart decision and unwise was that was me imposing my will onto the charts, the market, instead of taking the data that the market was giving me and forming decisions from there. I was trying to force an idea rather than just reacting to the data, right? Because if you look at this logically, if we put in an SMT at these lows and we're inside of a 30-minute busy, longs could technically play out. Obviously, the narrative at this point is still bearish, right? But that doesn't mean that longs can't play out, and I'm wrong, which is obviously what happened because this day we just pumped higher, right? So that's what I failed to realize. I should have just went break even here, regardless of how many points in profit I was. I know it was only up like 0.25 R, but still, that just because of how much a trade is up in terms of your risk to reward doesn't change how you should manage it, right? This got SMT'd. We're inside a 30-minute busy. Price, these up close candles, if it closed above here, that would have been really bad because this would probably be inversed, and this inversion fair value gap would be the start of a new model to this buy side up here, which is what happened, right? So the main lesson from Wednesday's loss was to not impose your will onto the market and just really react to what it's saying to you. Everything else was fine. All the confluences were met. You know, there was clear draws on liquidity that were left from the overnight, so there are high probability draws if price wanted to reach for them. The only thing was that I was really just enforcing the will onto the market instead of reacting to what the data was saying. So that's Wednesday's trade. Thursday was a very, very similar situation. And it was the same lesson, right? And I didn't really internalize it until after this loss. You can probably see a trend now in my psychology where I don't really internalize a lesson until I've been burned like twice. And that's just the way I'm wired. That doesn't mean I can't change though, right? So ideally I want to get to the point where if I see something happen once and I know that I shouldn't be doing it, I shouldn't be repeating it, right? But yeah, that's that. So go to Thursday now. Thursday, I was actually leaning bullish because of Wednesday. So Wednesday, we ended up just moving higher throughout the entire day. And at that point, I was like, okay, maybe we're just going to leave these relative equal lows in the weekly busy for maybe next week or sometime in the future, right? And NQ would rather go to all-time highs first, which is fine. So going to Thursday, I was leaning more bullish, right? And I was looking for some type of Judas swing lower into this hourly 50% and to get a long out of it, targeting buy side. So very simple in terms of the buys. What ends up happening at open is we come down and we SMT this low on NQ right here. So we have this bullish SMT on NQ. I actually took this trade on ES too, which I do regret. So I see this and my finger was literally hovering over the button to enter into the trade here, but then I hesitated, even though I shouldn't have. The reason why I hesitated was we were so high in premium on NQ. So if you drag this out, I know it shows that it tapped it, but that's just because replay mode's not working that well. Oh yeah, see? We're basically here. So pretty far away. we're not that far away, but we were a good amount away from 50% on NQ, and that's why I hesitated. As well as at the time, you can see this wick here. This next candle opened and it immediately just nuked. So I was like, oh, okay, that's really sus. So I just ended up hesitating. But what ended up happening was I saw the same exact trade idea on ES. If I can find it here. Yeah, here on ES. Let me just mark this out for you. ES. So I thought it was a little cleaner on ES and had a better risk to reward, which was not really a good reason for entering the trade because risk to reward doesn't matter for entering a trade or not. But that's why I entered. So I enter there. What ends up happening is NQ kind of chops around a bit, really bad price action, and then takes out this buy side, which is London High. This buy side was here on ES, and then we ended up putting an SMT. Now, same exact thing happened. I should have went break even on my trade on ES. It was like up here. When NQ took out that high, ES was up here, so I was about 3 points in profit on ES, and that was the perfect time to just go break even. Especially after we get these two down close candles and these two up close candles. This should tell you that price action is just not good, especially on NQ2. Look at how we whipsaw back and forth. Right? So same exact lesson from the prior day. Should have just went break even at where the target was, right? Because again, if price wanted to reverse, this is where it would reverse off London High. This happens all the time, right? If you guys trade NQ and ES, you guys would know that very, very commonly we get reversals off London Highs and lows. And you can see that after London High, there's literally no buy side except for all-time highs, which is like 200 points away. And I just failed to realize that. And I was so attached to us us going to this 1 hour unmitigated SIBI as the draw for the session. And I was so married to the bullish bias for whatever reason yesterday, that I just didn't go break even. And then after reflecting upon that loss after yesterday's trading session, Thursday, I realized that the biggest thing holding me back this week was my stop loss management and profit taking at key levels where we could see potential reversals that get SMT'd while I'm in a trade, right? And I literally remember what my internal monologue was I need to let the trade breathe a bit more, and I'm not like in as much profit as I want to be, which is purely emotional and just focusing on money, right? Which is why I didn't go break even, which is completely foolish, right? So, like I was saying earlier, the biggest lesson from this is just going break even at that SMT. That doesn't mean to go break even at any SMT. Going break even at an SMT with a key level that could possibly reverse against me when I'm in a trade, just like how the trade from Wednesday was. So that's Thursday's trade. And now Friday's trade, which was today. So today, I was leaning more bearish. I was leaning more bullish because I saw that we had this change in state of delivery down here, but I thought that was just merely to rebalance to the 4-hour BISI down here, which is aligns with 50%, before we inverse this 4-hour SIBI to continue to all-time highs and to leave that weekly SIBI for another time, or weekly BISI for another time, right? So I was leaning more bullish. So I wanted to see some type of manipulation at open lower before going higher. That never happened. At open, we end up filling the opening range gap, which was about 11 points. Price never even closes inside of it. It just leaves a wick. We leave this BISI respected and then just get bought up. And this is one of those continuation days. Now, towards the end of the session at like 10:10, I took this short, which at the time looked really good, but obviously hindsight's 2020, and I shouldn't have taken this. The reason why, I'm sure you already guessed, is because we've already expanded so much, and buy side has been taken. Buy side for today was previous day high, which was 671 on NQ. Right? I took this short right here. We SMT'd previous day high, and I wanted to just scalp this for low-hanging fruit at this low. What ended up happening was this was just merely a rebalance to 15-minute fair value gap before continuing higher, and I got smoked. Now, this is just an example of why you should not be trading after the morning objective has been taken, because you'll probably just end up taking these setups where you get like a small retrace. You think you're up fat, you're about to be up fat because it's going to go to these lows, but you just get stopped out and price continues to chop. I've seen this happen so many times, and I am officially so sick of trading in these conditions that, like, I'm making it a rule now. It wasn't a rule before, but it's going to be a rule now to where if I'm trading, I cannot trade after the morning objective has been hit. Or if I'm in a trade, the target, the overall draw on liquidity for that trade idea cannot be intraday liquidity. Intra-session liquidity, sorry, meaning that it cannot be liquidity generated after 9:30. If I'm in a trade, the target must be liquidity before 9:30, whether it be pre-market highs and lows or overnight session highs and lows, previous day high, previous day lows, previous week highs, previous week lows, because intra-session trades or intra-session liquidity is not a high probability draw to frame trade ideas based off of, right? So yeah, I honestly think this week all these losses could have been easily avoidable, and if anything, I should have just not have taken a singular trade this week. Price action was horrible. I think the only valid trade I took was that long that I should have just went break even at the SMT. And the one on Wednesday, the short on Wednesday. The short on Wednesday and the long on Thursday were the only ones that were valid. But they would have been break-even trades if I had managed them properly. So yeah, that's the weekly review. Overall, I'm really happy that this happened. I'm not happy with the executions, but I'm happy that I've learned these lessons, and I can take this into the next week and not repeat them. So I'm looking forward to next week. Hopefully we get better price action, and I'm looking forward to taking only high probability setups and acting like the most successful version of myself when I hop on the charts. So that's the trade recap for the week. Hope you guys have a good one.